Good afternoon. Welcome to the Committee of the Whole for Tuesday, July 23rd, 2024. I'd like to call this meeting to order at this time and welcome everyone to July 23rd, 2024 meeting of Committee of the Whole, which I'll now call to order. Are there any declarations of interest from members of council at this time? I'm not seeing any. I will now move to our land acknowledgement. The town of East Gwillimbury recognizes and acknowledges the lands originally used and occupied by the First Peoples of the Williams Treaty First Nation and other Indigenous peoples. And on behalf of council, I thank them for sharing this land. We also acknowledge the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation as East Gwillimbury's closest First Nation community and recognize the unique relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and the waters in this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and we join them in these responsibilities. Under community announcements, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our Parks and Recreation team for the great work that they are doing. Summer is such a busy time, and I want to acknowledge the beautiful grounds and flowers at our parks and facilities and the great events you have organized and delivered to our residents. Canada Day, which was spectacular. If anyone was out, you know. Our music in the park nights, we have one scheduled for this evening, and coming up August 9th and 10th, our Taste of Culture event. Really great work, and thank you very much, staff. Are there any announcements from members of council? Councillor Crone, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You did steal some of my thunder. I was going to thank staff for the great work that they've been doing, especially on Canada Day. But I did want to relay a note that Councillor Leahy and I just received from a resident. And in this role, you don't often get compliments. But I wanted to extend it to the Parks and Rec staff. Very happy with, from whatever residents, very happy with the new King Street Park. They're very excited about it. Their kids are loving it, and it's wonderful that they'll be able to enjoy it for the rest of the summer season. So a great deal of thanks to park staff and everyone that made it happen. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. It's always good to have good news. Any other members? Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much through you, Madam Mayor. I was going to supply more specific dates for the Celebrating the Arts that you referred to so that everyone can save those dates. There will be a variety of incredible local artistic talent, including music, as well as a kids zone and entertainment for children. So we hope to see you all there on Friday, August 9th and Saturday, August 10th. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? I'm not seeing any at this time. I will move to item E, and that's deputations. We have 4 deputants on the agenda, and I remind each of you of the 5-minute time frame allotted. I'll signal to you when you are reaching the 5-minute mark. Our first deputant is DeNicola on behalf of Kindred Spirits Day School, making a deputation to committee regarding the creation of a nature-based elementary school at 4122 Davis Drive. Please come forward. Welcome. Good to have you with us today.
Thank you very much. And good afternoon, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Melinda DeNicola, and I am the founder and principal of Kindred Spirits Day School. It is my personal mission in this life to forever change education, bringing back nature into our schools while also combining the academics, which are so very important. Next slide, please. Why I'm here today is because we have purchased a property located at 4122 Davis Drive in East Gwillimbury, and we would like to convert this property into our new school property, our forever home. Next slide, please. The subject property is currently zoned ORM core and natural core area on the town's official plan. The zoning bylaw and the official plan of the town currently does not permit schools. However, we are a unique school, definitely different, and requires such a property to continue to teach our students about environmental stewardship as well as agriculture practices. Next slide. So a little bit more about our school. We are a private elementary school servicing kindergarten to grade 8, but we are a nature-based school. So everything about what we need in terms of our environment is unique to us and what we're offering in our school. Our learning environment is one that is very nurturing, and nature is a big part of that. We currently have 60 students at our school, 10 staff members, as well as been in operation for 2 years. We're getting ready to enter into our 3rd school year coming this September. Next slide. Our unique curriculum encompasses not only academics, which is a very important thing from the Ontario curriculum in our school, but it's how we combine it with the teaching of life skills as well as personal development. So our school is very what we call cross-curricular. It's actually quite empowering because it allows our students to put into practice daily everything that they're learning on the academic side of things, while also developing their life skills, such as agriculture. Next slide. These are just some photos from our learning environment. As you can see, happy, thriving children. Next slide. And once again, next slide. So environmental and agriculture education is something that doesn't actually fully exist in most schools these days. That's what makes us truly unique. We actually get our students in the gardens, hands-on. We're teaching them the concept of what it means from farm or field to table, and then connecting it back to their health. That's what makes us truly unique and why we need a space that actually provides that opportunity to increase our garden sizes. Next slide. Community engagement is also extremely important for us. We have a very special community, a school community, and it's something that we aim to be as that hub within a community to really bring together not only our school community members, but also local farmers as well as other community members as a whole. As you can see behind me, we have quite a few parents who are in attendance here today, as well as those who are joining us online, because the school is something quite special for them. We want to bring community and education together as one, and that is our goal. Next slide. This is the school building that we purchased, 4122 Davis Drive. As you can tell just from this photo alone, it doesn't look like your typical residential home. In fact, it was a custom-built property, and pretty much everyone who's come by to see it yet has pretty much said the same thing of, it doesn't even look like a house. It looks more like a school, because the way it was designed exactly suits all of our needs and more. Next slide. So as you're walking through the halls, you see things like built-in bookcases for our library. It even has a small indoor gymnasium, whom our gym teacher is very excited about, as are we, as well as even things like a trophy case in the front lobby. It just looks and feels very much like a school as is. Next slide. So what are the immediate benefits of this location? Why this location? Number one, it doesn't require any redevelopment. We love the building just as is, and it serves all of our purposes, which goes hand in hand with our sustainability goals as well, to be able to have a more sustainable practice in our school. So no redevelopment required. Number two, it backs onto the forest, which is why it's on the Oak Ridges Moraine most likely. But the forest is an important part of our curriculum as well, because teachers take students very frequently, sometimes daily, into the forest to continue their nature studies. Also, it's agricultural land, which obviously supports our agricultural component of our curriculum. It's also a great location for agritourism. It has plenty of parking, and there's the opportunity for collaboration with the Royal Canadian Riding Academy, the RCRA, who's right next door. In fact, I have a letter here today that we received from the RCRA and the Chickadance family, supporting our initiative to be their neighbors and a local school right next door to them. In fact, one of the members of the Chickadance family, his daughter attends our school as well. Next slide. This is just a quick rendering of our learning garden. We actually hope to expand it even further to make it more of a community garden. Next slide. And as you can see from the learning environment, it is a very different style of a school. It's something that brings the outdoors in. Next slide. And these are all existing features of the home as is. We would obviously furnish it differently. Next slide. Agritourism at Kindred Spirits is a huge opportunity for us, and is something that we see as a great potential in this property. We want to be able to extend the learning beyond just those within our school community from Monday to Friday. Think of holidays, think of weekends, having events, having other social gatherings, teaching more community members about all that there is around us, the land, and embracing everything about it. You could do trail walks where you're showing plant identification and teaching all about that. You could do picnics in the park. You can do farm to field, or farm to table kind of, events where you're teaching families how to cook and how to use various produce. There's just so many things that we could do where we can leverage the land as well as the educational principles of our school. Next slide. To top it all off, we are also in compliance with East Gwillimbury's sustainability goals, 5 of the 6 to be exact. Number 1, we're contributing to a vibrant local economy through the use of our school, caring for our natural environment, of course, because we want to preserve the land and only enhance it. We don't want to do anything to disrupt it. We want to address climate change, which is a big thing too. So everything that we do, how we operate, is very sustainable as a whole. We want to support inclusion and belonging by opening our doors to the greater community as a whole. And of course, we want to build connections through community. Next slide. So in conclusion, Kindred Spirits Day School wants to be a part of the growing town of East Gwillimbury. It is important to us. We really feel a connection to this town, and we feel it falls hand in hand with exactly everything that we want to offer to the community. Our goal today is to receive council's endorsement to allow an application for our school to be located at 4122 Davis Drive in East Gwillimbury. I thank you very much, and I welcome all questions.
Thank you very much. Are there questions at this time? Go ahead, please, Councillor Leahy.
Thank you very much. Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much for that presentation. It's very clear and concise, so I can see you've been busy as a principal. You've got experience with that kind of presentation. It's exciting to hear about this possibility of this school coming to our community with all of the benefits and the alignment with the sustainability goals that you have. And so I wonder if you could speak a little bit more about the students who attend the school, obviously just in general highlight form, in terms of you have 60 students you mentioned.
We do.
And do you have a wait list, and what is the appeal for parents and for students to come to your school? Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Madam Mayor. We currently have 60 students at our school and a very long growing wait list. We have many families that are already living in East Gwillimbury. We've even had some families move to East Gwillimbury for this school because of the uniqueness of it. Overall, our students are extremely happy. Our wait list right now is at over 120 students. We don't plan to have that many in this one location. However, beyond what we currently have and growing year over year a little bit, but it is something to show the testament of the importance of creating a school that actually brings the outdoors inside and allows the kids to be able to reconnect and be their natural selves. Children thrive in nature. They thrive when they feel connected to something bigger. And so having that opportunity to do that is very important. So it is growing by popularity because there are a lot of parents who are starting to see the benefits of this kind of education. And to be honest, there aren't a lot of schools that offer that just now. So we're very proud to be one of the first and hope to be one of the ones at the forefront to really see this education become more mainstream.
Councillor Roy DeClemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, through you to Ms. DeNicola. I love everything about this. And in fact, I'm married to an educator, and as a parent, as parents, we wanted something similar to this for our own children, and we actually explored setting up our own school because we couldn't find it. We ended up going with a Montessori school, which came close as we could find. And one of the challenges that we came up against was the fact that institutional uses are not permitted on the Oak Ridges Moraine, and that it's provincial legislation, and it didn't matter what municipality in York Region the doors we went into and asked, they said, it's the moraine, you can't put a school on it. And I said, but what if there's an orchard? What if I buy an orchard and put a school on it? And they said no. So I'm just wondering, before you purchased this property, did you come to the town and ask about this? And were you informed that it was on the moraine and the provincial legislation wasn't going to permit it?
Yes, thank you, Councillor, and through you, Madam Mayor. We did actually do a lot of due diligence ahead of time. There is just something very special about this location that just really kept calling us toward it, which is why we're here today, to really keep working toward this goal of being able to operate our school there forever and always, and just to be able to enhance it. We're also currently speaking through my project manager, Mr. Dale Downey over there. We're speaking with the municipal, Minister's Office for Municipal Affairs and Housing to receive an endorsement, because schools are typically like a usage that is somewhat permitted, depends on where and how and all of the factors around it. So we are hoping to receive some kind of endorsement from the province as well to support us in our bid for this, and it's something that we're currently working to receive now.
Thank you. Through you, have staff also advised you about what sorts of code upgrades that will be needed? I know you mentioned that there was no redevelopment needed, but in order to make the building an institutional use, I would imagine that there would have to be some renovations done to bring it up to an institutional use standard. Have you been advised of that as well?
Yes, we have. Thank you. Through
Okay.
you, Madam Mayor. So we've actually done quite a bit of due diligence on that end. From our first conversation with town, we had an idea of some of the things we needed to do. So we've done due diligence. We've had septic, well, everything's been inspected. We have architects going through it as well to give us a code and a list of everything that needs to be done. We do have an immediate list of things that we're hoping to get done like next month, I should say, in August, and then a continued list to continue working toward it. Some of our top priorities based off a code is number of plumbing fixtures. So we're hoping to add plumbing fixtures to the existing washrooms. The nice thing is this is over 8,000 square feet, so we have lots of space to work with within the property and within the structure itself without having to add any, crazy extensions or anything big like that. So that's a big area. And then of course, fire safety and life safety systems. So we have an engineer who's in the process of designing that full design for us so that we can implement it prior to school starting.
Excellent, thank you. I will, through you, Madam Mayor, remind my committee members here as well that this property, I believe, is not only adjacent to RCRA, but it's also adjacent to the property where we had a deputation regarding an unusual form of a cemetery. They also saw merit in a nature-based cemetery to be adjacent to it, and like the deputant today, came to us and asked for our support to work with the province to allow for that, because cemeteries are also not allowed on the moraine. So I think, if there's a way for us to provide some support for her application with the province to allow them to amend the rules to permit this, I'm fine to do that. But it's there's an interesting stretch of property along that Davis Drive corridor that people have become very creative about trying to find unusual uses for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carruthers, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I agree with everything that my colleagues have said. It sounds absolutely amazing, and I like everything about it except that it's on the moraine. What my concern would be that everything you're saying today sounds great, but then we find out that you need to expand it, that you need to dig it up to expand the septic bed, or you talked about there's lots of parking. I've got the satellite image up here. I don't see a parking lot. So I want to get some idea about, is there a septic capacity there for your anticipated use, and how many parking spots would you have to add to the site?
Thank you very much, Councillor, and through you, Madam Mayor. So part of the due diligence process when we did the septic engineer to come in and look at all of it for our existing number of students and kind of our inhabitants, because we will not be showering there and it's different, it's just more so toilets and hand washing, it kind of changes the math a little bit. So we're actually okay to keep it as is for now. As we do grow, there is plenty of room for growth and the expansion of the septic bed without being anywhere near guidelines or restrictions from the Oak Ridges Moraine, just because of where it's situated and on the side. So that would be something that would be a potential sometime in the future whenever we did want to grow, but once again, only within what we're allowed to grow within that existing space. With regards to the parking, so the parking that we envision is actually all along the driveway. When you saw the satellite image, you see it's very long and narrow going all the way up. There's plenty of parking along the side there on the grass. So, people, even as we're doing agritourism initiatives and other things like that, just existing the land as is perfect for being able to park within it without having to bulldoze anything or overpave anything as well, which is really nice. So.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate having these conversations in public, so that's a public record showing that you're not looking at expanding, you're not looking at digging up the septic, you're not looking at paving over for more parking, and those things are all really important to me, that I hear what you're saying, and I just want to make sure that what you're saying today is your plan for the future as well.
It
So
is,
thank you very
yes.
much.
Councillor Crone, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Melinda, for your presentation. This is exciting, and I share the comments made by my colleagues. I think this could be a real jewel in East Gwillimbury if we can find a way to pull it off. And I appreciate your perseverance and your tenacity in approaching this. Schools are certainly something we need in East Gwillimbury. If you were doing a high school, that would be even better, because we're shy in high schools. I think we're the only town in York Region that doesn't have one. Anyway, that's another story. I would like to, unless anyone else wants to talk to this, I'm quite happy to move the presentation, and if we could throw out some support, endorsement, or what, subject to regulatory permissions through the Oak Ridges Moraine or in the province or whatever. But I'd like to show that we're getting behind you and show that you do have support from council on this. I think it could be wonderful, and I thank you for bringing this opportunity to East Gwillimbury.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? I'm not seeing any. I had the advantage also of walking the site a few weeks ago, and it's unfortunate that my children are adults now, but they do have children, and looked at it as an opportunity as well, because of course they live around the corner from here. So they would just run wild with the opportunities that facility has. And thank you for thinking about us and bringing it to us at this point. Of course, we don't really know where the province will land on this, but I'm certainly excited about it, and we will work as we can to try and make it happen.
Thank you very much.
I do have a motion moved by Councillor Crone at this time. Be it resolved that the deputation made by M. DeNicola on behalf of Kindred Spirits Day School regarding the creation of a nature-based elementary school at 4122 Davis Drive be received. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
I will now move to item 2 on our agenda, and if you would like to stay, we'd love to have you, but I know that this isn't your topic, but and there may be something else that you would like to do. We won't be concerned if you choose to leave the council chambers at this time. Oh, I'm just hearing that there is a second one also about the school. I hadn't flipped down far enough, so it's important that we do that as well. Okay. So this is number 2 on the agenda, and number 2 is Sherwood, making a deputation to committee regarding the creation of a nature-based elementary school at 4122 Davis Drive. My apologies, I wouldn't have let you go.
It's okay. I thought I was off the hook.
No.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and members of council. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity. My name is Samantha Sherwood, and I'm a resident of East Gwillimbury and have been for about half a decade, and York Region for my entire life. I'm also a parent of a child that has attended Kindred Spirits since its first year, and I would love to share a letter that I've written to share the importance of this school to us, with you. A childhood spent outside in fresh air, playing make-believe and tag, building forts and mud pies, returning home with sun-kissed noses, grass-stained knees, dirty nails, and full hearts. This is what we hope for our children when we become parents. Yet today's busy world, we see children growing up and stuck inside the 4 walls of classrooms, on tech devices, spending less time than ever with their families, going from activity to activity, disconnected from nature, their food, and how it gets to their table, and facing a host of physical and mental health problems. We sought something different for our children, and we knew a big part of it had to be where they would spend the bulk of their day away from us, school. We searched for years for the right fit for our family, as it sounds like quite a few of you did as well. We drove to Ballantrae for 2 years. Then we tried out Queensville, somewhere really close by, and gave that a try. But in the end, it wasn't until we met Melinda and started at Kindred Spirits that we knew we found our child's second home. It's not just a school, as Melinda mentioned, but it's really a community where like-minded parents have come together and continue to work together to co-create a beautiful education experience, ensuring our children not only meet their developmental milestones in a nurturing environment, but they spend lots of time outdoors, where the forest is a true extension of the classroom. They eat whole foods that they've also taken part in planting, growing, harvesting, and even preparing, understanding their role as a caretaker of this earth and its future, and ultimately empowering our children to be leaders and create a more sustainable future for themselves. I know I can speak on behalf of all the parents at Kindred Spirits in saying our children's education is everything to us, and we all strongly believe in the benefits of a learning environment that's more holistic and nature-based. Kindred Spirits is far from your typical private school, as Melinda has worked every penny to ensure that it's as cost-effective as possible for families, including providing all meals cooked daily on-site using only organic foods to truly nourish our children as they learn. In fact, it's so important to us that we have many parents, including myself from East Gwillimbury, and others who have traveled or even relocated around York region because of the approach and special programming offered here. Trust me, it's a daily commitment to drive 20-plus minutes each way, twice a day, when there are local schools within walking distance. But it's a worthy one, and I think this speaks volumes to the importance of finding what we are looking for our families. Most importantly, our children are thriving, feel loved and empowered as they continue to learn and grow, and they are genuinely excited to go to school every day, things I could not say before finding Kindred Spirits. We are hopeful for your support, which it sounds like we've received, and ensuring our children can continue to grow in a beautiful environment that Melinda and everyone has worked so hard to create. Thank you for the opportunity to address you and share our hearts.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of our presentator? I'm not seeing anything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Roy DiClemente. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. If those that were here for the school, we have concluded that you could leave or you could stay and listen to our agenda today. We won't take it.
Did we want to add something about support to their, I think there was a sentiment about adding.
Yeah,
Do you think we've said it, or should we?
I think we've said.
Okay. Okay.
We are now at item number 3, Mr. Lloyd making a deputation to committee regarding item G2, Development Services. Welcome, good to have you with us today.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and members of the council. My name is Murray Lloyd. Lived on Leslie Street for over 65 years and have always appreciated viable efforts, to help conserve our heritage. However, I believe that the proposed HCD along Leslie Street is not the best option. The recommendations within the plan seem to mirror the existing town's bylaws as outlined in the town's official plan. If the town would exercise its rights by enforcing those bylaw requirements, there would be no need for the HCD. There are inherent problems in the proposed plan. Firstly, it will have no control on what will be built in the village core, save for a few exterior trappings. Honestly, I'm not sure how the 6-story buildings which are allowed on Leslie Street are compatible with the historic or heritage district to begin with. Perhaps the most significant issue I have with the HCD plan is its lack of permanency. According to Bill 23, the HCD bylaws can be modified or even repealed by the town council at any time. The Leslie Street residents have experienced this type of abandonment firsthand with the town's sudden cancellation of the Sharon bypass. What I believe is a better approach for the town, given the development pressures, is to, while continuing to enforce its existing bylaws, and in coordination with the Heritage Committee, select individual properties that are of special cultural, historical, architectural significance, and designate those through the Ontario Heritage Act. The benefits of this course of action are twofold. First, the designation is permanent and cannot be altered by town council or even the province. Secondly, it can be cost-effective for the town. While the town should, as other towns do, offer financial assistance to homeowners of heritage-designated properties, it would no longer need to offer any financial incentives to entice Leslie Street residents to support the plan. From my perspective, if this was circa 1900 and the original buildings, such as the meeting houses and the various hotels and inns, were still standing, then the HCD would offer appeal. But those buildings are long gone, and there are better options out there to protect our heritage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there members of council that would like to ask any questions of the deputant? I'm not seeing any at this time. Thank you very much. Comments? Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Roy DiClemente. All those in favor? And that's carried. Item number 4 is A. Boyd on behalf of the Leslie Street Community Group. Welcome. Good to have you with us today.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and members of council. My name is Andrew Boyd, and I'm a resident of Sharon. I reside in a Century home within the boundaries of the proposed Heritage Conservation District. I'm here today speaking on behalf of the Leslie Street Community Group. We're not only members of the community, but we're also homeowners of properties along the Leslie Street corridor. We're not developers, not LLCs, not numbered companies. We are regretfully a shrinking number of people who reside in a home that was purchased with the intention of raising families, growing old, building a legacy, and becoming part of a larger community. They were not purchased with the intention of speculation, development, or for them to sit empty and become derelict. Knowing the above conditions and hearing about the possible HCD, we are highly invested. We understand that the vote today is about whether or not to move to stage 2, the planning phase of the Heritage Conservation Study. We also understand that there is pressure for intensification in East Gwillimbury and that the wolves are at the door, as they say. We all have an interest in keeping Sharon the beautiful historical town that it is, which begins with the Leslie Street corridor as people enter our community from both ends of the city. As a small community group, we're at this point neither wholly in favor nor wholly against the creation of the HCD. There are some concerns that we have regarding the HCD, and we'd like to share those today. Our first concern consists of the lack of communication and transparency during this process. While there were 2 formal meetings, we were offered very generalized information, and in both instances of community information sessions, the hired consultants provided no real insight, nor did they effectively provide residents with a sense of purpose for why the creation of the HCD should occur. We were provided with no real details to help us understand what an HCD would actually mean for us, for our homes, and for our families. Significantly, during the initial consultation, at no time were the residents of Leslie Street specifically engaged. Alternatively, the consultants chose to engage with interest groups of developers instead of residents. When one of the members of our group reached out to the town expressing concerns that we were craving information and our voice was not being heard, they were told by staff that the required minimum consultation had taken place and no further information sessions would be granted. This response quite frankly, is shameful. We later came to know another means of obtaining information would be through the HCD website, which similarly provided an absence of details we required. Finally, the information pamphlet delivered to our doors, while glossy, provided no substance, no next steps, no confidence that the creation of the HCD would be beneficial and not a detriment to those of us who live along Queen Street, or Leslie Street. That was another life. Another concern we'd like to address today is regarding whether council will be able to confidently manage the planning, creating, and executing a well-thought-out HCD. This lack of confidence is a consequence of the town appearing to struggle to hold builders and developers to account where bylaws are concerned. Examples include 18825 Leslie Street, the very large modern home on Leslie, and more recently, 18687 Leslie, the Sharon dental property. Seemingly neither of the builders followed the plan submitted to the town, yet managed to make uncharacteristic changes without council approval or maybe even their knowledge. And yet in both these instances, there have been no penalties. We also were heartbroken at the swiping axe that a developer was able to take at a property at 18816 Leslie. We worry about whether councils and the staff have the people available or specialized knowledge to tackle such an important project with all the complexities and moving parts. A poorly executed HCD could be disastrous for Leslie Street homeowners. We're concerned about entering into phase 2 of this HCD plan. So we respectfully ask that you enhance your engagement with us, the stakeholders. It must include residents and homeowners of the proposed HCD. This should be all residents whose primary residence abuts onto Leslie Street. We at this point are keeping an open mind. We recognize that much of what is being done is reactionary to the rapid nature by which EG is developing. By using existing bylaws, EG can support decisions and hold developers accountable. It is your duty and responsibility as our elected representatives. Hold developers to account for the derelict buildings along Leslie Street, including the Ramsey residence and the Morton Farm. Further, hold the owners of rental properties to account in order to maintain the charm and historical nature that is the Leslie Street corridor. Finally, recognize that you don't know what you don't know. We are not expected to be experts on what an HCD is or how best to implement it. You are, however, expected to represent your constituents as best possible. Therefore, you need to be willing to listen, engage, and perhaps be uncomfortable with what you're actually hearing. Ultimately, we need more information. As homeowners that will be most impacted, general information is just not enough. We need to understand the impact an HCD could have on our homes. We do not want to be in a position 15 years from now wondering why we didn't ask these questions, why we didn't plan more, why we didn't stand up to protect our homes. We, as the residents of Leslie Street, want to work alongside council to ensure that the best possible plan is in place. As the draft document suggests, this best plan may be an HCD or may be designating only those structures with the greatest historical significance and enforcing existing bylaws to keep the history of Sharon alive, as Murray pointed out in the earlier deputation. We want the plan that not only acknowledges the historical importance of Sharon Village, but also recognizes the homeowners that call Leslie Street home. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from members of council? Councillor Crone, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you to Mr. Boyd. Thank you very much for your deputation and for your candor. You've raised a number of points here today, and I'm just wondering, from what I'm hearing, the big takeaway is we need more consultation.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Brody Clemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I wanted to echo what Councillor Crone has said. I want to thank you for your very thoughtful deputation today. And I I'm disappointed that the residents feel, and I understand where it's coming from, because I've been hearing it from residents that they don't feel like they have the information. The reason why the town embarked on this was because, as you said, the wolves were at the door. And we were trying, there were many steps that we took to even get to the study that I think are probably a decade too late. And so some of the things that you are discussing, the addresses that you're citing, were ones that started to initiate that. Well, how can that happen? How can that house happen? There wasn't anything in place. There weren't rules in place to stop it. So by having some form of protection for our historic downtown, then we do have the tools that we need. The challenge becomes, at this point, we have a study that has been completed that says that it might make sense to implement a plan. And so our next phase is to look at, council's going to be deliberating in a few minutes, whether or not we go to a plan. And I would hope and expect that if we do so, that the residents who are most, the property owners, the residents, and the homeowners who are at most, have most to gain or lose would be our partners in that process, and not outsiders trying to scrape this frost from the glass and peer inside to see what's happening. So that would be my hope and expectation, is that that you and your neighbors are partners in us protecting what is so precious to you especially, but to the community as well. And recognizing that those homeowners are stewards. You're caretakers on our behalf, on the community's behalf, of these beautiful properties. And the pride that all of you take in your properties is apparent, and we want to support you in that respect. So I just wanted to make those comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much. Other questions or comments? I'm not, oh, Councillor Johns, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. I just want to, what is kind of reverberating, and through emails and conversations, and then Councillor Crone just made a comment about seeking more engagement, and it kind of echoing what our deputant just said. You know, I'm looking at the report, and I know we're going to speak to it next, but I just want to say, while our deputant is standing there, I'm going to be looking to see if we can actually table the motion and move it to a later date, because all the residents are asking are more consultation and to get better clarity before we move to the next step. I don't think that's a big ask. They're not saying that they don't want to venture into the next step. They're just looking for some more engagement at this point. And if we do have a group that has rallied and here personified here speaking today, I'm happy to support that, because I don't think that 6 weeks will make a difference in the end. And so that's what I'm going to be contributing to the discussion later on as it comes. If in the end that doesn't pass, then I will be voting no. Not necessarily because I don't want to see it, but because I think what we need to do is that catch our breath. If residents say they want more engagement, then here we are. Let's engage. And so that's just where I'm coming from. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Through Madam Mayor, may I speak to that?
Yes, you may.
Thank you for your thoughts on this, and I respect your opinion on that as well. We as a group also are wary of properties that we're probably not privy to in terms of what has been sold and what developments are being planned for them. And our worry is that the current bylaws aren't being enacted enough to put controls on some of those properties that we're seeing the horrible results of, you know, that properties are being paved to allow nothing but parking. And so if we're able to increase time for consultation, that'd be wonderful. And in the meanwhile, enact bylaws to the furthest extent that we can prevent some of those, I'll say, atrocities from happening.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Foster, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Perhaps, I know that we're going to speak to it in a little while here for one of our next items. Perhaps we could just get a very quick answer or a comment from staff on what type of consultation comes up in the next phase.
Gentleman, Bijan.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor. There is a statutory requirement in the plan phase to have additional consultation, but beyond that, staff have already committed to increasing the specific consultation specifically with the residents most impacted. At a higher level, the HCD was considered as a tool that impacts the community as a whole, and the engagement took place across a broad spectrum of stakeholders. But the very clarity and the very detail that we know that these residents are seeking is what is determined through that collaborative process in the plan phase. So I'm not sure that delaying the plan phase actually will assist the residents in getting that clarity and assurance that they're looking for. I would suggest that proceeding to the plan phase in a collaborative partnership type approach, as was suggested by Councillor DeNicola, would be much more fruitful in being able to determine, what does this mean for me as a homeowner? What does this mean for me in terms of any potential impacts on changes I may wish to make to my home? What does this mean for me in terms of the impact on trying to sell my home? Those are questions that can't be answered through the study phase, but very much are the focus of the plan phase.
Thank you. Councillor Johns, you had a comment, question?
Yeah, just to follow up to the comments made there, I think that in essence is my point. The fact that if we are saying that the residents who are involved aren't aware that the next stage is when these things will be taken, I think the fact that they aren't aware is the whole point of the engagement. Mm-hmm. So it's not like we have an infinite amount of properties. We have a finite amount of properties that we are speaking to. Like, I'm happy to go bang on doors and say, we're going to have a meeting on X night. And okay, so the next phase is, this is where we would go through this. I think, to my point, the fact that people may not be aware of what the next stage is the fact that we need that engagement on that specific point for that finite amount of properties.
Councillor Carruthers? No, sorry. Roy DeClemente, go ahead.
I'm wondering, unless we have questions for our deputant, I wonder if we might receive his deputation and leave some of that discussion and back and forth for the report that's before us. And I think we've asked any questions we have of Mr. Boyd and just want to move things forward. Thank you.
Councillor Leahy has a question, and then we will move forward.
Through you, Madam Chair, not for the deputant, but I wanted to bring to the attention of everyone that in our council meeting this afternoon, or later this evening at 6 p.m., item number H is in fact related. There's a correspondence for consideration regarding vacant and unoccupied homes, and that was from a resident in Ward 2 on Leslie Street. So I would just like to bring that to people's attention, so there's another opportunity as well and another factor involved that we'll be discussing later today.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd. We have your name down as well.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Could I have a mover for Mr. Boyd's presentation? Councillor Carruthers, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. There are no presentations as far as the agenda at this point. I will move to item G with Councillor Roy DeClemente in the chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have a rather lengthy agenda this afternoon, and I'll just get myself organized. The first item is Development Services Report DS 2024-17. Animal Services Contract. We have a resolution that we receive the report and authorize staff to enter into an agreement with the town of Aurora. May I have a mover, please? moved by Councillor Crone. Ms. Bégin, would you like to set this up for us, or is Mr. Krupnik doing that?
I can do so, and then
Okay.
certainly my colleagues can join in as needed. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to acknowledge that as we discuss this, that the exploration of a different approach to animal services was initiated around the time of the pandemic, when we were notified that it was the intention of our current provider of some of the animal care services to retire. And just want to acknowledge that that individual has been a key contributor to the municipality. Going back as far as 1998, I believe, was the first bylaw appointing Mr. Wayne Jones, and we're very grateful for his continued services. And so it was at that point, and this has been sort of an ongoing review to sort of to understand what the best way forward in terms of sustainable coverage and what's most cost effective for the municipality. And so that's what the report reflects before you. I did want to acknowledge that Mr. Jones had indicated a willingness to continue to support the town, and we're certainly grateful for that and for his consistent support over many decades. But I'm happy to answer any questions about the technicalities of the report before you if you have any.
Members of committee, any questions? Seeing none, I'm wondering if we might incorporate a resolution acknowledging Mr. Jones's, is it 26 years of service to the municipality? Councillor Crone, this is your motion. I want to acknowledge his. I think that's the right thing to do. Yeah. Okay. So, Madam Clerk, can you craft us a little something so that we receive the report and that we acknowledge and thank Wayne Jones for 26 years of service to the town and its residents and its furry friends?
Through Madam Chair, our Deputy Clerk is actually typing away through this resolution, so just bear with us
Just put
for a
that on the
moment.
screen then when it's ready.
Thank you.
And while staff are preparing that for us, I, as chair, just wanted to acknowledge or suggest that as we move forward, that we look to the next 5 to 10 years to find ways from an operational perspective to bring these services in-house. At some point, this is a solution that brings us to 2029. But eventually, I think we're gonna want to have our own staff and our own bench strength. And so I know that it takes time for us to create that those operational funds. So I wanna make sure that we have some time for that. Go ahead, Councillor Carruthers.
I had the opportunity to meet with the animal control people in Aurora and take a look at their equipment. It is incredibly specialized. I think that if we can continue this partnership for as long as possible, we are in really good shape. This is not something that you can just bring in-house. When you talk with them and you find out the different things that they have to deal with and how the different equipment that they work with to do that, I would not want to bring this in-house because I think it'd be very hard to find someone who can do it. They have specialized equipment that they share. They need this once in 4 years. Well, they have it between all these different municipalities. So when they need that piece of equipment, they have it available. So I hear what you're saying, and normally I would agree with that. But having gone through their truck with them, I think this is something that we are lucky to partner with other municipalities and have all of these tools at our disposal. Thank you.
It certainly speaks to why it was so successful when we moved to have them address the injured wildlife rather than just the domestic pets. So, thank you. So if we can just amend that resolution, it's up on the screen now, that we acknowledge and thank Wayne Jones for 26 years of service to the town, its residents, and its animals. And that's moved by Councillor Crone. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item is where we sort of began our discussion, and we're going to return to it now. It's Development Services Planning Branch Report DS 2024-18, adoption of Sharon Heritage Conservation District study, not plan. And we have a resolution that Development Services report be received, that we adopt the study and direct staff to proceed to Phase 2 in accordance with the HCD boundaries illustrated in Appendix 1 to the report. And may I have a mover so that we can table that motion, please? Moved by Mayor Haxon. Ms. Bégin, do you want to kick this off for us? I know we also have staff who've been working on the project in the room as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that that staff have already committed and have been working concurrently with the residents, specifically the Leslie Street residents, to another engagement specifically with those folks and members of council to help them better understand the process. That was the intent of the mailer that went out and the updates to the website, and we'll continue to use every means possible to help them understand where we are in the process and what the next stage of the process will include. But I'd like to turn it over now to our Manager of Planning, Victoria Baldessera, to speak more to the report.
Ms. Baldessera, now that's going to take some getting used to. Congratulations, I suppose, are in order.
Thank you.
Okay.
Taking some getting used to for me too. Through you, Madam Chair, as Ms. Bégin mentioned, this has kind of been an ongoing process. We have been working with residents trying to clarify the process. We had sent out a pamphlet with some frequently asked questions, hoping to answer some of those questions that we are receiving on an ongoing basis. And we are committed also to doing some additional consultation above what is required under the Heritage Act. And I think part of what we've tried to get across in this report is that moving forward to Phase 2 doesn't mean that we're adopting the plan or that we're committed to even having a plan. It's going into the next phase of preparing to eventually pass a bylaw or not. So whereas the study phase was more about gathering information, I think the purpose of those initial public consultation sessions was to ask questions of the community, try to fill some of those gaps, and that's something that we have done. Our heritage consultants who are with us virtually today as well, there were some things that were identified as being incorrect with respect to specific properties, and those have been addressed, and that was really the intent of the study phase. So in moving towards the plan phase, that will give us the ability to actually prepare a plan, begin to look at what those future heritage guidelines will look like, what is important, what makes this community special, and actually kind of come up with a way to formulate that into a plan to protect what is identified as being important. And I am available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Is it Ms. or Mrs. Baldessera?
Mrs.
Okay. Members of committee, questions for Ms. Baldessera? There are no questions? Councillor Johns? Okay, sorry, didn't see your hand up. Go ahead, Councillor Johns.
Problem. I wasn't going to say anything, and I think dysfunctional, but we have we go through communication reports and we're listening in meetings, and I would suggest we need to do mailers, or people are reading mailers, and then I'm told sometimes, well, mailers aren't necessarily that one thing that we need to be doing, and then so when I hear every means necessary, and we put out the mailers and we post it on our website, if residents are telling us that they don't feel like they are informed, even if the next stage is, sorry, I just cut it there for a second.
Yes, you had. Yes, you did.
If I'm
You're
back.
completely frozen on our screen. Councillor Johns, maybe you want to just turn your video off and just come to us audio. that might improve your connectivity. Want to give that a try?
Got me now?
Yes.
Great. I guess what I'm leading to, if residents are feeling that they are not engaged, then their feeling is correct. It is not a wrong feeling. And so I don't see any harm if I can be informed if there is harm in delaying, if there is some type of challenge that we won't be able to overcome if we don't delay for 6 weeks to allow the residents the opportunity to have, I don't know, I'm happy we can even host a small town hall session and just to say this is where we are and this is what this vote is coming up next, because the opportunity just to make sure that everybody's on the same page, I think it's an important one. And I'm not dismissing the work that has been done by staff, by the consultants. I'm just making sure that we also have the residents fully informed as well. That's all I'm trying to get at.
Thank you, Councillor. From my perspective, the conversations that I've had with residents they've had very specific questions about how much what will it take to get a heritage permit? Are there supports for property owners? What are the sorts of things how does this affect my property value? And those are questions that we can't answer because we were still studying the problem. What I was hoping to do today, and I know this is your motion, Mayor Haxon, was to actually craft a resolution that directs staff to hold further meetings with the residents, particularly those who own property on Leslie Street, to engage with the process. I'd also like to see staff report back to us on the matters of, for example, we talked about there being a tax incentive to, that there's a reduction in property taxes for a designated property or a property within a district. Maybe there's a way of making those heritage permits at zero cost, that there's a give and take and a quid pro quo here, that while we as a community and as a town want to see this protected, we also recognize that the property owners are our partners and our stewards on our behalf, and we want to support them in making those decisions that are right for the community, rather than being the big brother who says, no, you can't because it's not the right color or something like that. So, Ms. Baldassara, is there something that you can share with us that would help us kind of get past that impasse of, okay, we acknowledge that there needs to be more engagement, but we also don't necessarily want to lose the study and go into phase 2 where we can answer those questions, or at least ask them and get some answers for our residents. I think you've had a lot of conversations with residents as well.
Yes, we have. I certainly think that the benefit with moving forward to phase 2 and doing consultation through phase 2 is that we will be better equipped to answer some of those more specific what-if questions. It also allows residents to be part of the process and contribute, because it really is about formulating a plan that protects whatever is deemed important. So we know from the study phase now, our consultants have determined that the area meets the criteria to be eligible as an HCD. So now the next phase really lets us determine why, what is important, what should be protected, what should the permit process look like. And without advancing to that next phase, I'm just not sure that we'll be able to answer a lot of those questions.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Crone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Mrs. Baldassara. Are we bound by a timeline? Like, do we have a gun to our head that we have to get this report done by a fixed date, or is there some flexibility there?
Through you, Madam Chair. No, there's no specific timeline. We do have the January 2027 timeline for designating properties before they're lost, but that's certainly lots of time to go through this exercise.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then I personally don't see any harm in holding pat and having some more consultation now before we move into the next phase. That's just my opinion. And I know when it comes to communicating with the public, and this is no fault of anyone's, I've worked in marketing before in my career, and just when you think you've communicated enough with people, you still communicate. You have to keep you're never done. It's the challenge of marketing. So I certainly have no issues with us having certainly more consultations before we move on, but happy to listen to the rest of my colleagues. Thank you.
Ms. Bégin, I see your hand up. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, through Madam Chair, and certainly just wanted, in full transparency, just want to acknowledge that we absolutely can engage in additional consultation, but there will be presumably budget implications and maybe implications in terms of the timelines of the consultants, because when they contract, they have a projected end date, and so there may be impacts in terms of their availability, but that shouldn't stop us from having those consultations. I just wanted, in full transparency, to acknowledge that.
Thank you. And I think we were also worried about the provincial government's deadline of the end of this year, and so that's been extended. So that's given us a bit of breathing space. Any further comments or questions? Mayor Haxon, you made the motion at the top of this discussion. Do you want us to vote on that motion, or would you like to withdraw it and prepare another motion?
I will withdraw it if there is another motion to come forward.
Okay.
If not,
Well, we still have to receive the report, so that has to be part of it. Councillor Crone, I saw your hand.
Happy to do that.
Okay, so we're receiving it. What are next steps?
I think we should.
Microphone, please.
Sorry, Madam Chair. I think we could take this moment to request staff prepare at least one more consultation with the public before proceeding to the next phase.
Okay. So the motion, as I heard, is that we were going to receive the report and that we are directing staff to prepare or to hold at least one more consultation before bringing this back to us for consideration at a future meeting. Mayor Haxon, go ahead.
thank you very much. I can agree to that, but I would like to make sure that we're not having them in the evenings, and we have people that are not available in the evenings or daytime and vice versa. So somehow that we make sure that the times that we choose are most advantageous for our.
I know that at least one of the residents that was very engaged in this process is on vacation right now. So, it's that part of the, that's that time of year as well. So any other comments? Okay, I've got Councillor Leahy and then Councillor Foster.
Through you, Madam Chair, I would like to suggest that we put a time deadline in that for the consultations to happen that you are desiring, and that the voting be split, that there'll be separate votes, one to receive and one for the motion that's been introduced now.
Okay, I can do that. Councillor Foster?
Thank you. I'm afraid that we're losing sight of the fact, unless I heard wrong, that staff is telling us they'll be much better equipped to answer those questions in the next round of consultation if we move into that next phase. Could I have someone, whether Ms. Bégin or Baltasar, 100% correct me on that? Are we going to hold more consultation that we're not prepared to offer up a whole lot more information that we already have without moving into the next phase?
If I may, Madam
Go
Chair.
ahead,
Through you, Madam Chair, at this point, the additional consultation, I believe, would be to clarify the process, because that's what we have the ability to do. We would not be able to answer the questions, as Mrs. Baltasar said, with respect to the specific what-ifs or how the specific impacts on individual properties, but we could certainly walk through the process in terms of how an HCD study is conducted and what the implications are and what the next steps are.
Thank you, Ms. Bégin. I see Councillor Johns has his hand up, and then I see you, Councillor Carruthers. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. In regard to Councillor Crone's motion, and then they were talking about timing, I think in your comment about folks being away, I would just call for that the meeting, the engagement session be done in September, sometime in September.
And then it be brought back to us at an October CWC? Okay, we can make that part of the motion. Councillor Carruthers, you had your hand up?
That was one of my comments, and the other comment is that we invite specifically the residents who are most affected by this, the people on Leslie Street, with a letter delivered to them.
I think the study has their addresses in it.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Madam Clerk, we have a motion on the table moved by Councillor Crone, I believe, that we receive the report, and further that we direct staff to conduct another outreach session in September and bring this matter back to us to a CWC in October. And I have a request that it be separated for 2 separate votes.
Through Madam Mayor, Madam Chair, our deputy has presented the draft resolution on the screen before you.
Okay. Any discussion on the motions? So I'll call the vote for the first one that we received. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor.
Just the language, one more public consultation. I think an additional
Further.
would be,
Prepare further.
yeah. One more limits it if we ever want to go
Okay.
back or something,
Thank you.
yeah.
So we prepare further consultation, and is it going to come back to CWC, or is it coming back to council? Let's make it CWC. Okay. So the first motion is by Councillor Crone that we receive the report. All those in favor? Sorry, I was watching the screen and the room. That motion carries. And then also moved by Councillor Crone that council request staff prepare further public consultation in September 2024 prior to reporting back to Committee of the Whole at an October 2024 meeting to be ratified later today in order to be able to make it happen. Sorry, it just occurred to me. We want to ratify it on Thursday if you want, just so that it can happen before our September meeting.
Should I say before we move on to the next phase? Phase 2?
We haven't adopted the study. We've just received the report. Sorry, Councillor Foster asked me if we should speak to referring it to, my apologies, before moving on to the next phase of the project. And my response to him was, we haven't allowed the next phase of the project to proceed here because we haven't adopted the study. So we're still in the study phase and not the plan phase. Go ahead, Councillor.
So just a question on the ratification. Is it not automatically ratified at the next meeting, which would be Thursday?
Through you, Madam Chair, typically ratifications would happen in a regular schedule every 2 weeks. So with respect to this one, unless the resolution would explicitly state it, we would not be able to place it on Thursday.
Okay. So the second motion moved by Councillor Crone that we request staff prepare further public consultation in September prior to reporting back to Committee of the Whole at an October meeting, and that we ratify this resolution on Thursday's council meeting. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. Okay. Next item on our agenda is Development Services Planning Report, DS 2024-19, a zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision applications for Queensville Properties Phase 8, which is located at 1002 Doane Road. The resolution that's prepared for us is that we receive the report, that we approve the zoning bylaw, that we grant draft plan approval, and that we endorse the proposed street names, and that the plan of subdivision shall lapse if final registration is not granted within 3 years, and that we ratify these resolutions later today, same day. May I have a motion, a mover for that, please? Moved by Mayor Haxon. Okay, Ms. Bégin, did you want to set this one up?
Certainly, and I believe I'm going to turn it over to our senior planner, Mathieu Daou, to speak to this application. And I understand that there was potentially conflict with one of the street names, it being already appearing. So I believe that Mr. Dow will be able to address that, and we will be able to adjust accordingly in the report.
Good stuff. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Doane.
Perfect. Thank you. Through you, Chair. The staff report before you today recommends approval of the draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment seeking to rezone the subject lands from rural RU zone to site-specific open space 1, environmental protection, and a number of site-specific residential zones on the property municipally known as 1002 Doane Road. The applicant is proposing a residential subdivision comprised of 217 single detached, 50 townhomes, and 75 laneway townhomes, a park block, and a stormwater management block. All in all, the application generally conforms to provincial policy, the official plan, and the zoning bylaw. Following the public meeting, planning staff have worked with the applicant and consultants, among other items. The residential unit count was decreased from 351 units to 342 units. 5 single detached lots were eliminated from the draft plan to increase the size of the park block, and 2 townhouse blocks are now proposed as single detached lots. Some other notable items to mention, as part of the draft plan of subdivision submission package, the applicant has completed a Thinking Greens development standards checklist, which meets the town standards for this exercise. And on that same thought, a standard condition is proposed forming part of the draft plan conditions as a safeguard to ensure this work is completed as agreed upon in the checklist. The developer has proposed a list of street names from the council approved list of names, which can be found in Appendix 4 of my report. Lastly, planning staff is also recommending council ratification of the resolutions at this evening council's meeting, given the applicant's ability to service the proposed development through existing servicing agreements and given the upcoming August council break. Once again, through the lens of the street name, particularly the Hackett Road and William Hackett, Hackett Street, which is the existing street in the town, and William Hackett being the one proposed in the Appendix 4 of the report. Planning staff have had discussions with the applicant on this matter, and they've agreed to amend that road should council see fit to Donald Clark, which is again from the street name inventory list. So I'll leave that in your hands and welcome any questions.
Thank you. Before I open the floor, I'm just wondering, Mr. Dow, can you, the application is seeking some site-specific zoning. What aspects of our zoning bylaw are they seeking relief from?
Just bear with me through you, Madam Chair. Just pull up that section in the report. There's three site-specific zones. Some of them fairly lengthy, but ones that have been utilized in previous Queensville developments in the past. So it's nothing new to council here, but to be specific, minimum lot frontage per dwelling, minimum porch depth, maximum driveway width, just bear with me as I read through these. Private garage can only be attached to the main dwelling unit via a breezeway with a maximum width of 2.5 meters. Minimum separation between the detached or attached private garage and the main dwelling shall be 5 meters. Decks may encroach from the rear yard of the main dwelling unit to a maximum of 2 meters. And 2 other minimum porch depth of 1.2 meters.
So these are zoning, site-specific zoning provisions that have been used elsewhere in the town already?
Correct. Yes.
And they're not anything unusual. It's not like they're supposed to have a frontage of 10 meters and they're seeking 5.5.
Through you, Madam Chair, that's correct.
Thank you. Okay. Members of committee, any questions? Councillor Carruthers?
Thank you. You opened with my question, but I need more detail. When you say minimum lot frontage of 5.5 meters, I don't know what how that changes from what's existing. So they're asking for that, but was it 10? Was it 30? Was it 5.2? Like, you know, let's get an idea. So I'm wondering if you can go through and give us an idea with the zoning bylaw amendments, what is changing? Not what it's changing to, but more what it's changing from, so we can have a really clear idea on what it is that we're approving. Thanks.
Through you, Madam Chair, as it relates to let me just pull that section up here again, was lot frontage. So they're seeking 5.5, and that's for the single detached, if I'm not mistaken. Just looking through the bylaw here.
Mr. Krupnik, do you think you might be able to support him on that, and perhaps you can get that information for us, and I'll see if there's any other questions?
Certainly. Through you, Madam Chair, can I have the question repeated, though?
Go ahead.
I know Matt is presently looking for the R2 zoning, I believe, but was there a more general question, more general nature?
I'm trying to understand what zoning we are changing. So we are going from what to what? So the first one is minimum lot frontage of 5.5 meters is what they're asking for. What is that a change from? So to understand what we're changing, are we going from 10 meters down to 5.5? Are we going from 6 down to 5.5? What exactly is changing? So for us to approve a change, I would like to know what change we are approving. Yeah, what was the old, what is the existing, so we understand what we're changing it to. So we're not planners, so we need to do that. And Madam Chair, I have one more question in addition to this.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. And I think, Mr. Doust, as we were discussing it, it looks like you found the answers.
Yes,
Go ahead,
apologies
please.
on delay. It's a lengthy bylaw, but nonetheless, it's townhouse dwellings. So in the R4 townhouse dwellings, the minimum requirement is 6 meters of frontage, which they're asking 5.5. And then for the rear lane towns, there's a minimum of 7 meters, seeking 5.5.
And those are the only two changes they're asking for?
No, as I mentioned, the previous list I went through, there's like I said, a number of
And that's what I'm
changes.
asking.
Yeah.
That if you're asking us for a number of changes, I need to know what those changes are to be able to say, yes, I approve those zoning bylaw changes. So I'm wondering, I know you're asking for same-day ratification on this, but we do have another meeting on Thursday, and I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity to come back with this chart actually showing what's changing, so council can have a really good idea of how we are changing our zoning bylaw. Because we put a lot of work into that zoning bylaw, so when we change it, we should be very clear on what we're changing it to, because it does set a precedent. So as Madam Chair said, these are very similar to what we've done in other areas, so I want to get a really good handle before we say, this is our why not just change the zoning bylaw to 5.5 if that's what we're doing everywhere, right? So if we can get a really good idea of what's being changed, I would really appreciate that.
Thank you, Councillor. I guess from my perspective, if this is something that if we have approved this elsewhere and for purposes of consistency in a community, then it may not be as much of an issue. It's not brand new to us. It shouldn't be brand new to us if we've approved it in the past. And especially since this is adjacent to a further phase north of there, I would assume that those site-specific zoning were created as part of that phase as well. So this would make sense, even just for a community continuity perspective. Is that correct, Mr. Doust?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'd say that's a fair statement.
Okay, thank you.
So-
So you had a second question as well.
So to clarify, all of these are in the other phases. All of these same zoning changes are in the other phases.
Through you, Madam Chair, they've been employed elsewhere in the town. I can't say exactly which phase was it employed, but
The applicant's planner is nodding. We can't necessarily officially acknowledge him, but
Yeah, okay.
that may be helpful.
I would like more information on specifically what we're changing from. So going from 6 to 5.5, not a big deal, but there's a bunch of other ones in here, as you said, and if it's not too much trouble, I would like to have a really good understanding on what we're voting to change. So my second question is, you mentioned how they have met all the criteria for Thinking Green. And I've mentioned this when they've come before us before, that one of the level 1 Thinking Greens that apparently they've met the criteria for is about having 800-meter walk, within 800-meter walking distance, 3 existing amenities or planned amenities within the development. So, then that's grocery stores, community centers, that sort of thing. I don't see that within 800 meters of this, and I'm just wondering how that box got checked. If you can provide some details on that, thanks.
Go ahead, Mr. Dowst.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, it's the Thinking Green Development Standard Checklist it's somewhat of an agreement at the time of the planning stages that, like I said, it forms part of the condition package that these will be addressed later down the road. So, whether the applicant in a future phase implements some of these amenities that you've previously mentioned, it's things that'll be considered at the condition approval stage.
So looking at the site plan, there is no room to put any of these amenities within the existing site. And then there's heritage behind, and to get to 800 meters, there's nothing within, there's no land within 800 meters to put these. So I'm just wondering, how do we check the box on this when this is not going to happen? We know this isn't going to happen.
For sure. So through you, Madam Chair, the onus is on the applicant to basically prove to the town how they're going to adhere to this particular, checklist and that condition in particular. So as you mentioned, at the time of the site plan process, this will be looked at under a fine-tooth comb, and at that stage, it would be implemented.
Yet we're saying that they've met all this criteria for Thinking Green, and they haven't. I'm sorry, this really, I find that we're making this more difficult than it is. They have not met all the criteria for Thinking Green, and they won't be able to meet this particular criteria because there's no land for them to put these amenities within 800 meters. So can we just say that rather than fine tooth later? This isn't fine tooth. Having 3 amenities within a subdivision is a lot of space. And there's no space. They're not leaving space for this. I had said when they first came to us, could we leave space for like a little strip mall or something like that so we could have some of these amenities? And they're not interested in that. So they have not met the criteria for Thinking Green. And if there is a way that they're going to meet it down the road, then please share, because I don't see how they could meet this criteria when there's no space to put these amenities. I'm wondering if we can get an answer on how this will be met. It's not a fine-tooth comb. These are 3, a grocery store, a pharmacy, a library. How will they meet? Where will they put these? That's, I guess, what my question is. Where will they put these amenities?
So through you, Madam Chair, I can certainly defer to the applicant on that particular question. But as it relates to the checklist, it's forming part of the draft plan condition. So until the applicant fulfills that particular condition, staff will not, clear that condition for approval.
Okay. Any other questions this time? Members of committee, we had a note flagged regarding the street names. There's a Hackett Street in Sharon Village and a William Hackett Road. Sounds like it might be confusing. Is there any resistance to Donald Clark? Do we know if Donald Clark was a veteran in Sharon or Queensville? We've confirmed that. They're not, because we've had a problem where we've named streets for veterans that were not part of those neighborhoods, and the people who wanted them in their neighborhoods were upset. So we've confirmed that that it's from the Sharon, Queensville section of the list?
Through you, Madam Chair, I can't confirm the exact location, but I can confirm it's a veteran.
Okay.
If you bear with me, I can pull it up quickly here.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, Madam Chair, through you, just for other consideration, I know at a previous meeting we had updated the list to include some Indigenous veterans, and I was just wondering if that was part of the mix here. Thank you. Just throwing another question on the heap for you.
No, not at all. Through you, Madam Chair. I conferred with the applicant on all the street names and left it sort of the ball in their court in terms of, sent them the PDF of all the street names, and they've agreed and sent forward the list that's presented in the appendix there. Regarding the list and Donald Clark in particular, it does note community unknown in the list, unfortunately.
Okay. At least we've looked that part up, and we know that for sure. So I believe this was your motion, Mayor Haxon. Did you want to amend the street name to include Donald Clark in lieu of William Hackett?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I have a motion moved by Mayor Haxon that is as presented with the exception of the street name being amended. Any further questions before I call the vote?
Yeah, if I may.
Go
Were
ahead.
we going to do the ratification today or on Thursday? I thought there was some request for clarification on some items, and maybe a ratification on Thursday gives us a day. I don't think the
Madam Mayor,
applicant will sweat too much over that.
Madam Mayor, it's your motion. Do you wish to do it on the 23rd or the 25th?
Let's leave it to the 25th, be sure.
To move it to the 25th?
Yes, please.
Okay, that's also amended, Madam Clerk. You've noted that? It's okay.
Through Madam Chair, just for clarity, is the intention to defer this report to the 25th, the consideration of the entirety? The ratification?
No, it's just the ratification.
Okay, so we can perhaps amend that portion of the ratification to be placed on the 25th as opposed to the 23rd.
That's correct. So the only things that are changing in the resolution as presented is the street name is switching from William Hackett Road to Donald Clark Road, and that the last clause should read that we ratify the resolutions at the July 25th, 2024 council meeting. Okay, moved by Mayor Haxon. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. Sorry, there was a time delay on you, Councillor Johns. Were you in opposition? Yeah, okay. Bit of a brain cramp there. Okay, on my part. The next item on our agenda is Development Services Planning Branch Report DS 2024-20, an official plan amendment application for Woodbine GP Inc., which relates to 19350, 196, is that a 6? 612, 19298, 19266, and 19222 Woodbine, as well as two further addresses on Farr Avenue and 2196 Mount Albert Road. The motions as presented to us today are that we receive the report, that we approve the official plan amendment, and extend the boundaries of the existing 404 Employment Corridor Secondary Plan, and that the implementing bylaw be brought forward to a future council meeting, and that we ratify these resolutions today. May I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Crone. Ms. Bijang, would you like to proceed with this one, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to ask our Director of Planning Policy and Growth Management to provide some context, and note that we also have our planner to Janani Nagulin, who can provide some context on this report.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Krubnik.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. This application is actually a little bit of it was an application received a little over a year ago, and it's also an application to amend some lands to employment, but also is somewhat of a conformity exercise for the town to conform to the regional official plan for employment lands north of the existing 404 secondary plan. So we are seeking to bring those lands within this within the existing 404 secondary plan, and therefore conform to the regional OP at the same time. In terms of some details as well, I will let the planner speak to those, but I'll also address any questions that council may have at this time as well. Thank you.
Ms. Nagulen, did you have anything further to add? Welcome. Mr. Krubnik, can you turn your microphone off, please? Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, through you, Madam Chair, I did also want to note that the intent of the official plan amendment was to conform to the regional OP. However, starting July 1st, the Municipal of York is no longer an approval authority. However, we have looked at those comments and specific comments have been addressed. Also, following the public meeting, there were a number of items that we took a look at, and the applicant did provide supporting documents in support of the proposed uses. This also included a land needs assessment, and so that satisfied our conditions. I also wanted to note that planning staff have noted that a subsequent zoning bylaw applications and site plan applications will be required, and per section 11.2.10 per the amendment have a list of required documents that they will have to provide.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Members of committee, any questions on this one? Councillor Carruthers, go ahead, please.
Thank you. You'll see a theme here. I'm trying to get a better understanding of what exactly we're approving. So I go to the bylaw, and it says that there's attached Part 3 and associated schedules. And there's no Part 3 or associated schedules attached to that bylaw. So I'm trying to get a better understanding of what we're approving. The report talks about Appendix 9, which is the OP amendment. So we are approving the OP amendment, but that Appendix 9 is not in this report. So I'm wondering what sort of obligation we are to have that posted publicly. The agenda has been public, but it's referring to the OP amendment that is actually not attached to this. So I'm not comfortable approving something that the public has not seen and that I haven't seen.
Staff, is this a typo in some form? Appendix 9, I'm going to pull up my agenda.
Just to help everyone, page 226 of the agenda is the bylaw, and it says that the bylaw amendment consisting of the attached Part 3 and associated schedules be hereby adopted. So if we're adopting schedules, they are not attached to this.
Can you help, please?
Through you, Madam Chair, I understand Appendix 9 was attached but separately, so it was not part of the complete report due to the size. So I understand Appendix 9 should be listed as part of the agenda.
It's listed, but it goes 6, 7, 8, and then it goes on to the next item. So page 226, you'll see is Appendix 8, and then the very next page is the next item. I worry most about our obligations to the public, that if we're changing our official plan, the public should be able to see it in the public agenda.
Madam Clerk, so the agenda, I'm actually just pulled up the report. It's 17 pages, and it stops at Appendix 8 on page 17. So was there an attachment that wasn't included? I know this agenda was over 300 pages, I think, but.
On page 218 of the report, it says appendix, it lists the appendix, and it shows Appendix 9.
Yes, it does
listed.
refer to,
Yeah.
it refers to Appendix 9, but it's not been added. I'm just wondering where we would find it in our agenda.
Through Madam Chair, I'm just investigating to identify where it would be. I don't believe it's part of this attachment that was placed on the agenda, so I'm just trying to determine where I can find the attachment.
Okay. Ms. Nagulen, was it included as part of your report?
Through you, Madam Chair, so due to the size, it wasn't added to the report itself, but it was added separately. So I'm not sure if it was passed along.
It's not included in our agenda, I think is what's happened. Mr. Krubnik or Ms. Bégin, how would you advise that we proceed? Clearly, we're not ratifying it today.
Through you, Madam Chair, You know, again, it was my understanding that this was to be made available to members of council so that they review Appendix 9. If it has not been made so, if we're comfortable moving this to a Thursday agenda item, then we can make that specific appendix available to all to review for that meeting.
Madam Clerk, does that satisfy our needs for public notification?
Through you, Madam Chair, that would, so far as we have the 24-hour public notification, that should cover that, and we will endeavor to have that revision included if council wishes to pass a resolution to defer this item to the 25th.
Members of committee, how would you feel about that? I think we know how Councillor Carruthers feels. Go ahead.
And so the bylaw refers to attached Part 3 and associated schedules as well. So let's make sure that the bylaw has the attachments to it as well.
So Councillor Crone, I'm assuming that you'd like to withdraw your motion? Okay, so we're going to withdraw, Councillor Crone is withdrawing his motion, and Councillor Carruthers is putting receive and refer to the 25th. Go ahead. Where
Through
would
you,
you
Madam
like?
Chair, perhaps it could just simply be deferred to the 25th
Deferred
for
to the
the entirety
25th.
of the consideration, if that suits you.
Okay.
To do that,
Okay.
I don't want to receive it because it's incomplete.
Okay. So it's being deferred to the meeting, Committee of the Whole meeting on July 25th. To also be ratified that same day?
Through you, Madam Chair, perhaps the deferral could be ratified today so that we can action it out, because we are in committee of the whole right now. Yes. So it
Got
will
it.
be deferred, and our staff will endeavor to place that on the agenda this
Right.
evening, and.
So that we can ratify it, so that it can be considered for 24 hours' notice to be on the agenda on the 25th.
That's correct.
Okay, everyone with us? All right. So moved. All those in favor? That motion carries. Can we make the next one easier? Please? Okay, one more. Development Services Memorandum of Proposed Site Plan Application. So it's just a memo regarding 91 Sluse Road. This is not a zoning or an official plan amendment, it's just a site plan. And I need a motion that we receive. Councillor Foster, you okay to move that? Okay. Ms. Bégin, do you want to introduce this to us or speak to it at all?
I can actually, I'll ask our planner to, Janani Nicolinda, if she would return to the podium to speak to this. This is an intro memo introducing an ICI application that brings with it some significant job creation.
Welcome back. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, councillors. I'm here today to introduce a new site plan application received by the town, made by Patero Investment Corporation at 91 Sluse Road. The subject property is located north of Oriole Drive and east of Bathurst Street. The proposal is to expand the existing one-story industrial building and to add a second story to the office component on the property. The industrial expansion is to be 2,304 square meters of gross floor area. The proposed use is manufacturing and assembly of concrete formwork panels from aluminum. The proposed development is anticipated to generate approximately 50 on-site jobs. The application was received in June of 2024. The first submission was circulated, and comments have been received and sent to the applicant. And has now been deemed complete. And I'm happy to answer any further questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you. In the attached mapping, it shows that the official plan land uses, it shows environmental protection and natural heritage. I don't see that on the proposed site plan, that is being protected, so I'm wondering what we're doing to protect that natural heritage and environmentally protected land within that site plan. Thanks.
Go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair, so I understand that you are looking at that little portion of environmental protection that is on the property. So LSRCA has reviewed the proposal and has provided comments. They've indicated that there is no concerns with regards to that portion there, but the applicant will have to address those comments before going forward.
And what do you mean address those comments?
So there were a number of comments with regards to the natural heritage, so providing studies to support the development on the site. So either hydrogeological, just related studies.
Okay, so a specific question, is the natural heritage system that is mapped on the site being protected with this development?
Through you, Madam Chair, so I understand from LSRCA comments that there was no concerns with regards to that portion of that environmental protected area. So there are comments that were comments that the applicant will have to address to ensure that that is protected, that area is protected. So if there's any sort of development that is occurring, then they'll have to ensure that that area is protected.
Ms. Bégin has her hand up, so perhaps she can be your phone a friend.
Yeah. Yeah, if I might, just to clarify, so through the process and through having agencies such as the LSRCA review the application, what their role is to identify what steps would need to be taken to provide, whether it's a buffer, whether it's understand it through like any potential impacts to the water table through hydrogeological studies. So that has been identified and considered. So at this stage, our understanding is that the LSRCA has indicated that they believe that development can occur in a sustainable manner without impacting that natural heritage feature, provided that their recommended steps are undertaken. If that, hopefully that clarifies.
Thank you. Mr. Krupnik would also like to add his contribution. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just to, as a point of clarification, our OP is sometimes a little bit more generalized in nature in terms of the mapping function. So the detailed studies for the site plan application will have a more specific and detailed examination of the feature on site to speak to it. So although it may appear green on site, we don't know the true nature and value of that portion until it is studied and submitted for our review.
Thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Foster.
Thank you. Just a general question, and I'm not sure anybody's going to be able to answer. Appendix 1, the location map, how old is that picture? I'm only asking because I'm in that area multiple times a week, and I'm having a hard time figuring out exactly, there's a lot of stuff missing from that picture.
Through you,
Not
Madam.
that it changes this a lot, but I'm just wondering how old the picture is. We're looking at stuff, and I'm not sure that it's very current.
Through you, Madam Chair, this was based on our GIS map, so I understand it's up to date. So
It's whatever the town has on file.
Through you, Madam Chair, it's probably the most up-to-date mapping we have, but I believe it's still several years old.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? I have a motion from Councillor Foster as presented. All those in favor? None opposed. The motion carries. Ms. Bégin, did you have anything further to raise at this time?
Not at this time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Members of committee, anything? Seeing none, I'll turn the chair back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. There are no items listed on the agenda under items H through O. Do either staff or council have anything to share under these headings? Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure whether it would be engineering and public works or other business, but once again, I've had an email request from residents who are north of Mount Albert Road in the Countryman area, wondering when the crosswalk on Mount Albert Road will be installed. We're seeing signs that Riviera is about to open their business and open for occupancy. That crosswalk was part of their site plan. And they've had significant delays at the Rivera building, and yet that Rivera building is going to be open before the crosswalk is in place. And I'm just wondering what we can possibly do to improve this. We've got a new school opening on the south side of the road, and we're going to have students who are going to be walking to school, trying to cross Mount Albert Road because they go to school on the other side of the road. So this is a bit of a time-sensitive issue at this point, and I'm just wondering what we can do to address this.
Councillor Leahy, go ahead,
Yes,
please.
Madam Mayor, I have a question regarding the procedure of raising this question, which is an appropriate and excellent one. Should we open up the Engineering and Public Works section of the meeting of Committee of the Whole, and then I can ask questions of the General Manager, and the councillor can ask her question?
I believe this would fall under other business simply because it's not on the agenda for that particular subject matter area, and it may not necessarily just be a Mr. Molinari challenge. This may be because it's a community safety issue, and it might relate to development services, or quite frankly, it may end up on the desk of Mr. Valchich at this point, because kind of frankly, I've had it at this point.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe the intention is to consider this item under other business section of your agenda. That's what I've heard based on the community safety impact of it. Would you want to entertain that under the other section, other business?
Yes, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, would you perhaps want to introduce the motion to introduce this topic, to waive the procedure and introduce the topic?
Could I have a motion? Councillor Crothers, or sorry,
Councillor Roy DeClemente.
Roy DeClemente.
And I believe Councillor Roy DeClemente has introduced a motion to discuss the status update regarding the installation of the crosswalk on Mount Albert Side Road. Is that correct? Madam Mayor, the question, I believe, was posed to General Manager Molinari.
Through you, Madam Chair, staff have been working with the developer on this particular item for some time. And we understand the frustration. We've also shared some of those same frustrations with the developer over time. We have set up a meeting with them for tomorrow in order to discuss some of the construction timelines. We understand that there was they did tender the project. Some of the pricing came in higher than expected. They've returned to some of the bidders with some additional information. And we're hoping to get an update on that tomorrow. And we've shared council's concerns with regards to having this open before the occupancies take place on that particular site. So I can provide an update to council on Thursday if that's your wish, and hopefully we can come back with some positive information.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Are there any other questions before we move along? Not seeing any, we'll receive that information. All those in favor? That's carried. Wonder, we have been sitting for quite some time to take a,
Almost done.
oh, heavens,
Through you,
yes.
Madam Mayor, I don't believe there are any other business at this time. You are now proceeding to item P on the agenda, which would be the adjournment section.
Adjournment at this time. Since there is no other business, be it resolved that the meeting of the Committee of the Whole Council adjourn at 3:53 p.m. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much.